Hi there, how is everyone? This is Laura. I thought I would get us started and make sure everybody can hear properly. I think you're all muted at the moment. I'll unmute a couple of you now. And if you want to say anything, hopefully I'll be able to hear you. Hello there.
Wait a minute, hold on. Can you hear me?
I can.
I know it's very
Leslie
loud.
Ann?
Yes, are you hearing
Hello.
me?
Hello everyone, how are you? Thank you for coming.
Oh, hello. I can hear you.
Excellent.
Yeah.
I've just started, so you
Brilliant.
haven't missed anything. I just thought I'd fire up the sound a bit early so we can make sure we all had a connection.
Is everybody hearing that noise I'm hearing?
Yeah, I think somebody's feeding back.
Maybe if you mute us again.
Yeah, I think I'll mute you just in case.
Sorry. It's lovely to hear you though.
Thank you. I think it was Leslie Ann Hunter. I think that's where we had the feedback. Great to see so many of you already teed up for the webinar, and delighted to see so much interest in this topic. So we'll have a chance for a question and answer session at the very end. So if anything occurs to you, just write it down, or you can submit it through the questions bar at the bottom of your screen. So our audience tonight, the attendees are not just VPs PR, but everyone who is interested in promoting our club. So this will be the sorts of things that somebody who wants to help out might be able to do, or somebody who's a VP PR, a VP membership, or a club president or other officer. So we'll keep it very generic, and hopefully that'll be helpful. And again, if you have any questions, just type them in to the answer screen and I will deal with them in turn. We'll have a session at the end where you can type in your questions. Probably, given the number of people we're expecting, it'll be best to keep everybody muted. We'll be going along through a PowerPoint presentation, so you'll be able to make some notes if you like, and the webinar will be recorded and it'll be shared onto the D71 website. That's at d71toastmasters.org, where there's a number of other PR resources for you. We're about 11 minutes before start time, so if you are having any technical problems, you can always work through those. For example, if you can't hear properly, I always like to use headphones because then I don't have any background noise for me in my surroundings. So I've got my headphones on and I've got a microphone on my headphone lead, which gives excellent quality sound, I've been told. So if you're having any trouble hearing me, just type in a question in the question and answer panels. And again, you can run through the test your sound screen on the GoToWebinar control panel. So I'll mute myself now while we wait for a few more people to come along. And again, if you're having any trouble, just do the sound test on the GoToWebinar panel. So just to say that we are all teed up, except for a bit of feedback. We're all teed up, and I'm just waiting for everybody to get onto the call. Great to have so many people coming along on Sunday evening. So we've got 6 minutes till we'll get started. And I'm Laura Bruce, and I'm delighted you've all taken some time out of your Sunday night, probably quite busy with Christmas and other things going on. It's great to have you join into the webinar and look at ways to help promote your club. So thank you very much for investing your time, and hopefully you'll get some benefit from this. And I will survey you at the end, so you can tell me whether or not you found it helpful. And again, as I've mentioned, if you have any questions, we'll deal with the questions at the end. We'll set aside 10 minutes at the end for questions. And there will be a recording of this webinar posted onto the D71 website. So we'll just wait for the rest of our attendees to join. We've got 5 minutes till we get started. I'm going to mute myself now until we get started. Hello everyone, this is Laura. We've got just a few more minutes now before we get started. I'd like to welcome everybody to the webinar and thank you for coming on. And we will limit this to under an hour because it's Sunday night and your time is precious. And if you have any questions, we can answer those at the end in the 10 minutes I've set aside for Q&A. And I'll aim to have you all the way by 7:55. So how does that sound? Does that sound fair? Just waiting for the last few people to join. We had great response to this, and I was delighted so many people wanted to come along and learn how to promote their club. I'll just mute myself again now for a second, and we'll wait for the last few to join. So we're going to get started right at the crack of 7 o'clock. I've got 18:59, so we'll wait another moment or two. And thank you again, everybody, for your interest in tonight's webinar. Hopefully you'll get some practical tips that you can put to work right away and some confidence about promoting your club, whether it's to do with an open night that you're planning or another sort of event. I'm keen to give you skills that you can use that don't have too much complexity so that you don't get overwhelmed or feel like it's too complicated. Right, it is now 19 hours, so we will get started. A very warm welcome to everyone who's joined the webinar. I've got a list of all the attendees' names here, and some of you I've met, some of you I haven't met, but thank you everyone for coming along. We have a question pane on your screen, so if you have any questions, feel free to use that pane to post a question. I'll deal with all of the questions at the end, and if there's anything that you haven't had a chance to have answered, of course, feel free to just email me. So I hope you know that you can just email me if you have a question. Big or small, complicated or simple, don't be ashamed if you don't know the answer. We're all learning, and we're all learning from each other here. So tonight's webinar is about promoting your club with PR. And this member training is open to all members of D71. And we have a range of people on the call tonight, people who are VPs PR or past VPs PR. We have people who are just ordinary club members, and we have VPs, membership, presidents, and other club officers. So we've got quite a range of people. We're going to gear this tonight around one particular challenge because I think it helps give a focus for what we're doing, and that is the idea of potentially having an open night. So we'll work the PR information toward that goal. And again, if you're having any difficulties with the technology, use the test pane so that you can hear everything. All of the attendees are muted, so hopefully we won't have any problems with feedback. So our objectives today are to help you identify simple ways to generate media interest in your club. We'll cover media release do's and don'ts. I'm going to share with you what I think is the one thing that you must always remember to put in a media release. And then finally, 3 things that I think are key to the success of your open night. Those are our objectives. So we will go to the next screen, and that is really to talk about what is PR. Now, as the PR manager for Toastmasters, PR can be a whole range of things. But for our purposes tonight, what we want to think about is publicity. And when I say publicity in terms of PR, I'm not talking about marketing your club. I'm not talking about paying for advertising for your club. When we talk about PR, we're talking about free coverage of your club. And in this case, specifically, we're going to talk about media relations, which is the side of public relations where we target the media. So you can do any number of things to promote your club, and they could all be PR. But it's only when you're talking to the media that you're doing media relations. So I hope that helps helps you to understand. What is public relations? There's a great expression my mentor in Canada gave me. He said, public relations is doing good and getting credit for it. And I think if there's one thing we would all agree is that Toastmasters does a lot of good. But always we hear people say, once they've discovered us, how come I didn't know about this before? And I can tell you I was one of those people because I didn't discover Toastmasters until just a few years ago when I moved to Scotland. And I'm delighted. But I think, where was this organization when I was a student, when I was in university? I found out that one of my classmates is now a past district director in Canada. And I think she probably knew about Toastmasters when we were both students, but I didn't know about it. One of the oldest Toastmasters clubs in Canada is in my hometown. So there you go. It was right there under my nose, and I didn't know. We've got a question from Steve. Steve, will this session be recorded? Yes, Steve, the session will be recorded, and it'll be posted on the D71 Toastmasters website. So you'll be able to review it there. And again, we'll have a Q&A at the end. So what is public relations not? Well, I've touched on it's not advertising. It is probably something you could think of as under the umbrella of marketing. But the idea of PR is that we're not paying for coverage. And this is why media relations can be so powerful, because a relatively small input of your effort to create a media release or send a photograph to the newspaper can be leveraged to reach potentially thousands of people. And so when we think about reaching thousands of people with PR, well, there's a great potential there and great power. So we're going to focus specifically on promoting a Toastmasters club. I think there's maybe some area directors, maybe even some division directors on this call. Everything we're talking about tonight will be relevant to a club and also to an area or a district. So hopefully that has given you a flavor for what to expect for the focus for tonight. Now, there are a number of ways to generate media interest, and I've promised you 5 simple ways to generate media interest in your club. And one of the most basic ones is to look at what does your club do in its normal day-to-day course of things, because it's always easier to promote something that you're doing already rather than to create a special event. And there are some things that happen normally in the Toastmasters calendar. And each of these things is an opportunity to make contact with your local media. How you do that we'll touch on later. But for our purposes right now, the calendar events that you have as a club officer or as a regular member gives you everything you need to provide a news hook. So the first one that happens right at the beginning of our Toastmasters year is the election of club officers. And this is something that is often a great way to introduce your club to your local media. It's a start of a new year, there's some new names and some new faces, and you can remind people when your club meets. If your venue has changed, that's another news hook. So if you've gone from one meeting location, let's say your club has grown and you've outgrown your location, that's another hook that you can hang a media release around. If you've got a particular meeting theme coming up, or if you're tackling something seasonal, that's always quite good, especially if it's a bit unusual. The other thing that's a built-in opportunity to publicize your club are your club contests. So we've got 4 contests a year in our D71 calendar. We've got the spring contests, that's the international speech contest and the evaluation contest. And in the autumn, we've got the humorous speech contest and table topics, which we've just had. So these contests at club level are a great opportunity to promote your club. Open night, which is something we're going to put our hands to work on tonight, is another great opportunity to promote your club, because it's specifically geared to welcoming members of the public. So that's the sort of thing that the media will find interesting. If you've got a guest speaker coming along, this can also be beneficial. Last year, my club, Inverness Toastmasters, put on a joint meeting with a local business organization, and we had Aletta Rochaw, the region advisor for Region 11, as our guest speaker. And this was a hugely popular thing, and the club, the business club had, I don't know, probably about 20% more attendees. So our speaker was a real draw for them. So guest speakers are always a great thing to use to publicize your club. And finally, seminars or training that your club is doing. You know, you might do this outside of your normal meeting time, but these can be very beneficial as well. For example, if you're running Speechcraft or you're running some sort of workshop, these can help to generate media interest. So hopefully that's been My screen's gone crazy here. Hopefully that has given you the ideas of what is newsworthy and some things that you can use. My touchpad's just a bit sensitive here. So I'm just going to go back. Right. So what makes something news? I like to say, put yourself in the position of a reporter. What sort of things, if you were a reporter, would interest you? And a really good guide is to look at your local newspapers in particular, because they're probably the best suited to promoting Toastmasters, and see the sorts of community events that get covered. I know that in our local newspapers in the Highlands where I live, there are a lot of charity events which get covered. Community events are quite well covered, and so I know that there's an appetite for that kind of coverage. If you live in a bigger city, you're competing with a lot more events than is just perhaps of interest on a small community level. Great news hooks are the first, the biggest, the best, or the newest. So you're looking for something that's a superlative. We talked about something, the first Toastmasters meeting on a ship. So we had a Toastmasters meeting on Loch Ness. So that was a bit of a news hook. So you're looking for something that is a bit different. Seasonal hooks are always good as well. And if you're having an open night, people making New Year's resolutions to overcome their fear of public speaking, or people who have just gotten engaged to be married might be having the wedding party, starting to to plan for their speech. Back to school is another good time. The nights drawing in the autumn when the clocks go back is another good time to encourage people to come along. I think spring, when people are feeling like they want to get out again, I think that's also a good time. So those are just a few of the news hooks that you can have. So, oops, one of the things you want to do, sorry, my PowerPoint slide is playing up here. Let's just get this fired up again. Just show you guys the screen here. And sorry, my screen, my touchpad's just a bit sensitive here. And we will just go back into, so what would interest you if you're a reporter? We've done that. We've looked for news hooks. Sorry, folks. I don't know what's the matter with me. Okay. So the media release. This is the main tool that we use in public relations. I use these all the time in my work in PR, and they are the sort of go-to tool. And the media release is also known as the press release or the news release. And the key word there is news. And it's a simple tool to share your news, but what you want to make sure is that it is in fact news. So shameless self-promotion is not news. That's why you're always trying to find a news hook. And the media release functions as a go-between between your club and the media. And the idea is to use it to bridge the distance between you and promote their interest in reporting on your event. The other thing is that news releases are written like a news item would be. And that means that they can also function as a standalone news item. So if there is something that you should keep in mind, is that you are writing it as a, oh, people are saying they're not seeing the screen. Let's just make sure. Sorry about that. I'm glad you guys used the question panel there. So you didn't see the screen, but you heard everything I said, so you haven't missed anything. Now just let me know if you're not able to see the screen now, just to make sure. Are you okay? Yeah, Philippa says yes, it's there now. Moira says, okay, great, super. So the media release, if you think of it as something that's written, as if it's a news item, that really helps to give you the important guidelines. So we'll skip now to the next screen, the do's and don'ts. So there's a couple of things you want to make sure you do when you're writing a media release, and we'll share a template at the end that you can all use to adapt for your club or other event that you're working on. So you want to answer the 5 W's. And we've all heard of this probably in school, the 5 W's, who, what, where, when, why, and maybe how. So you want to say the name of your club, what the particular actor or agent or thing that's happening is. You want to say when is it happening, where is it happening, why is it happening. And why is always a great place to work in. Item number 4 here, you can quote your president or other leader in the club, and they can say, we're doing this because our people in the new year always want to get over some challenge they're having, and for people who want to overcome their fear of public speaking, Toastmasters is the perfect thing. You want to write in the 3rd person, so you're writing it not from I am a member of the club, you're writing it as this club is doing such and such. And you want to make sure that you lead with what is newsworthy. And that means if you're having an open night, that goes in the first sentence or the first paragraph. Another thing you want to do is provide some facts about your club, some background information. You can say, when was the club founded? When is your meeting schedule? That sort of thing. If it's a corporate club, you could, well, you maybe not sending out a media release if it's a corporate club because you've got a fairly limited pool of people. But for a community club, you could say it attracts people from these areas and name the local towns that people come from. And then most importantly, you want to include the contact details. So if you're sending out the media release, you would put your contact details in. And typically it's the VPPR who would be issuing these things. So you'd put in your telephone number and your email address. So media release don'ts. I always love don'ts. They're so much more interesting than do's. So you don't want to write it in the 1st person because that would be unfamiliar to the media you're sending it to, and you would look like you didn't know what you were doing. And that's why we're doing this training. You don't want to write too much. Aim for about 250 to about 400 words at the most. That's about a page, depending on how you space it, maybe a page and a half. You don't want to engage in hyperbole. And one of the things you don't want to do is in the part where you're not quoting someone, you don't want to say that the Clonmel Toastmasters is the best Toastmasters club in Ireland. Now, it may be true, but you don't want to say that because it sounds a bit over the top. So you don't want to say, come to the open night, it's going to be the best open night you've ever been to in your life. So you just want to keep things low key. You don't want to omit a quote because a lot of times having a quote helps to personalize things. So if your president was somebody who had been nervous public speaking and the first Toastmasters they came to was an open night, could create a great quote. I'm a great fan of creating quotes for people so they don't get nervous about them. And if you know somebody, if you know the president or whoever's going to be hosting the event formally on behalf of your organization, this often gives you some insight that you can say. So you would know that they came along because they got a promotion and they wanted to be able to do presentations in their work, for example. So you can work that in and prepare a quote, and they can always change it to suit them. And what you don't want to do is forget to include details of your club meeting schedule, the time and the venue. And you don't want to forget to include a contact person. So those are the basic don'ts. Now, the one thing I promised you, if there's one thing you want to remember when you're doing this, is you want to make sure that what you are sending out is in fact news. You know, they call it a news release for a reason. and you want to make sure that your news is unmissable. So you want to foreground it. You want to put it in the headline, and you want to put it in the first paragraph. And if you include a quote, you want that quote from your president or whoever's the spokesperson for your club to be related to whatever is the news. So in this example here, I've created a headline, which is emboldened here. Donegal man to represent local club at international competition. So that's the headline. And then the first paragraph, the first sentence in the first paragraph would be, John Finnegan from Donegal will compete at the UK and Ireland speech contest in May. So that's the news. So that's exciting. That's news. It's not just general about your club. It's something specific. It's coming up in advance, and it's probably of interest to the local community. So if we turn now to an open night, what you would hopefully want to do if you're having an open night is you want to set the date well enough in advance that you and your open night committee, whoever that might be, have enough time to plan it properly. Publicity is part of the event planning, but it's only one part. So you want to have everybody delegated and having a task, booking the venue, making up flyers, preparing handouts, booking the speakers, organize the meeting, finding a Toastmaster. So in terms of your role would be to publicize your event, and I would recommend that somebody publicizes it internally to your club, so people not just on the committee or working on the special event are aware of it, but that your entire club knows about it, because everybody in your club is an ambassador, and they're also a great spokesperson. So hopefully they know when the event is. Maybe you give them some materials to hand out, some flyers or invitations. But the key thing for our purposes tonight is publicizing your event externally to the media, and that's where the news release comes in. So if you can get your media release out, say, 2 weeks in advance, I would recommend that that would be a good way to do it, because that gives the media enough time, depending on how frequently your local newspaper publishes. If they've got space for it, they can put it in at the last minute. They can hold it for a week, and still, if they publish it a week later, it's still in advance of your event. Never hurts to send things out early. But the other thing about your open night is you want to make sure that there's some follow-up with attendees. If you've done all this work promoting the event, publicizing it, you want to make sure somebody is going to be following up with the people who came along. So that would be perhaps the job of somebody else on your committee, maybe the VP membership, maybe your president, if there's at least somebody assigned to this. Maybe you can tackle it, you can share it out, but that there should be somebody tasked with following up with attendees. It's a terrible thing if you think about putting all this work into hosting an open night, promoting it, publicizing it, booking the venue, getting everybody there, booking the speakers, and then to drop the ball when it came to follow-up. That would be terrible. So make sure you've got a good, strong committee helping you if you're doing an open night. So there are a lot of resources that you can use. We've got a lot of resources from the Club Growth Director. There are some incentives in place. On the D71 website, there are media release templates, and there is funding available for PR events. So if you are having an event that is specifically targeting the public, then there is up to £200 or €200 per club available to help cover the costs of that event. And that, because it's a PR event, the idea is that it's outward facing. It's not internally to your club. And hopefully it will reach people that wouldn't have heard of Toastmasters. So those guidelines will be on the D71 website. The other thing is there are PR webinars done previously, and these will be on the website as well. So you can do replays of those, and of course this one will also be hosted. Let me just see. Hang on a sec. Hello? Hi there, is it? It is, yes. Hi there. Sorry about that. The phone's just rung. I got my mobile muted, but I can't mute the house phone. So we've got funding for PR events, as I was saying, and past webinars are also there. So there's a range of topics there, from promoting your club with media relations to your digital legacy and using video to promote your club. Beyond the D71 website, there is Toastmasters.org, as we like to call it, TI. So there are loads of templates on there, and you just have to look under the resources tab. And if you've never been on the Toastmasters.org website, boy, oh boy, it is a wealth of information. There are templates for flyers, templates for media releases. There are guidelines around how you can use the logo. There are PowerPoint presentations. There's a whole slew of presentations to do with hosting an open night. There's training for all the club officers. There's incredible resources there. So if you haven't been on the Toastmasters.org website, TI, wow, take some time, set aside some time, and just have a nosy around that. We're all going to have to become au fait with it, with the Pathways rollout soon. So it's probably timely just to find out that you are able to log in. So we're halfway through our time now, and I would be keen to answer questions now before we go back and cover these key points. So who has a question? Okay. So, Dana, your question was answered. Does anybody else have a question? Okay. Sarinka? Okay, so this is when you couldn't see my screen. So does anybody, if you see that hand signal, you can wave your hand and I can unmute you if you'd like to ask a question. So Olga, let me just call on you, Olga. And you can ask your question. I'm going to unmute you.
Release.
Hello.
Is it?
Hello, Olga.
Hello there. Is media release? Is it similar to advertisement?
No, a media release is different from an advertisement. An advertisement, you obviously have to pay to get into a newspaper. And the wonderful thing about a media release is that it becomes part of the news coverage of the newspaper. And that's the key distinction between a media release and an advertisement.
So if I ask my local paper to print a news release for me, they will just do it free of charge?
Well, they won't just do it, but if they do it, it will not cost you anything.
Okay.
That's the magic of public relations.
And who do I need to approach in order to get my press release published?
That's a great question. Your press release will be directed to typically the news desk at your local newspaper. And many of them actually have the email news desk or news editor at, and then the name of the newspaper. Brilliant. But they don't mind you ringing up to ask who is the best person to send a media release to.
Okay. Okay, thanks very much.
You're very welcome. I'm going to mute you again, Olga. Thank you for your question. So that was a very important question. Who do you send your media release to? So it would be going to the news editor or the news desk at your local newspaper. You can also try local radio, depending on how much local news your local station has. You may or may not have any luck. Sometimes a public service announcement will get you coverage in the radio stations, sort of their community publicity. So there's always more than one way to skin a cat. Tom, you've got your hand up. Let's find out what your question is. And I can unmute you now, Tom.
Hello, Laura. I'm just, I was just going to say that here in Westport in County Mayo, with our Toastmasters organisation, I already work with the local media and the local radio station on a regular basis. Like, for example, every 2 weeks when we have our meeting, the next morning or the next evening at the very latest, I always have copy in to the newspaper, and it's usually around 300 words, and generally speaking, absolutely no problem in getting it published. But the point that I actually wanted to ask was, you mentioned there earlier about €200 being available for hosting, for example, open nights. Could you just give me a little bit more information on that, please?
Absolutely, Tom. Tom, it sounds like you could be leading this webinar with the expertise you've got there in PR. Well done to you. And that's a great example of just, you know, having a bit of initiative and writing up what's happened at the thing, because local newspapers love local content. And we've all seen they've got fewer and fewer people working on the news desk, and they're scraping by and they're competing with online media. So giving them something that's well written and of interest to the local community, you're doing them a favor and you're doing your club a favor. So well done to you, Tom.
Yeah, that's quite true. And I also keep regular updates on Facebook as well, on the Toastmasters page on Facebook. So from a media point of view, like, we're pretty well covered.
Excellent. So you're asking about the funding.
Yes, indeed.
The funding details are all on the D71 website. And let me just go on the thing so that I can tell you exactly where to find it. I think the URL is d71toastmasters.org.
Okay.
And then if you go, has our website expired? It looks like, I'm not sure if that's a genuine thing. I've just typed in the Toastmasters thing. But if you search for PR events, the criteria there. So I've asked some questions about how you're going to promote it, what will the money be used for, blah, blah, blah. The idea, I think, what I had in mind was, rather than the Toastmasters D71 having a couple of big events that were funded, that the money was spent at a grassroots level. So that if you needed to book a bigger venue to have an open night, or if a bunch of clubs wanted to get together on a regional basis and host something.
Yeah, well, I've already commenced exploring the idea with the local town hall here in Westport, and they're very open to us holding an open night where members of the general public can come in and listen in and partake insofar as possible, with a combination of a real Toastmasters meeting with a couple of speeches and getting the audience involved as well. And the whole idea, of course, really is to take away the elitist idea of Toastmasters and bring it centre stage within the community itself.
Excellent. Well, that's great, Tom. Will you keep us posted on how you get on, and I'll look forward to receiving your application for funding.
Yes, we'll do our best anyway. Okay, Laura, thank you so much for taking the call.
It's my pleasure. My
God
pleasure.
bless.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So who else has a question? Tom's touched on something important there. Olga, we got your question. Who else has a question? Just click on the thing there to wave your hand if you've got a question. And I'll see if anybody's typed up a question. Okay, here we are. I see a bunch of questions have come in now. Sarinka, you've got a question. How important or effective are themes for meeting? I don't know how important they are. I think if you had something that was I get invitations to the London Toastmasters Debating Club, and they always have quite controversial meeting themes. And I think this arouses media interest. So if you're talking about, you know, Brexit or things like that, but again, they're a pro-con debating club, so they're going to have a forum for the speeches to address these things. So it's a bit more rough and tumble. That's probably more generic themes like New Year, New You, you know, might be a good way to hook people who are looking to make a change and perhaps develop themselves a bit. Philippa has asked, what is your elevator pitch to explain the benefits of Toastmasters in 60 seconds? Well, I always think the best thing you can say is something that's personal to you, because your conviction is there and it comes through when you're talking about it. So rather than say Toastmasters can help you develop your career, what I like to say is that I've become a more confident speaker, but I've also become a more effective speaker, that I'm able to hold people's interest a lot better when I'm speaking than I used to be. So I think when it comes to an elevator pitch, to personalize it is probably the best thing. But if you're looking for some of the Toastmasters.org, there's a great media pack, media kit on the Toastmasters website, ti.org, toastmasters.org. Search for media kit, and there's 6 pages of PDFs which tell you all kinds of different things and give you some clues about how you might personalize this to your audience. Steve, you've asked, how do you find the contact details of where to send the news release? Hopefully I've addressed that with Olga's question. So you would just ring up your local newspaper or your local radio station and say, can you please tell me who would be the best person to send a news release to? And they might just say the news editor, or they might give you somebody's name. So just take down their name, take down their phone number. I think people on the news desks are very taxed these days, and so what you want to do is copy your news release, you know, copy and paste it into the body of an email. That is the best way to do this. I covered this in an email to VP's PR, but you aren't all VP's PR, so you might not have seen this. So if you take a look on the d71toastmasters.org website, you'll see some PR templates. But if you have any questions, just email me, and I will, of course, answer your email and give you any kind of guidance you like. It looks like D71 has been hacked, Moira has pointed out. Yes, I'm not sure if it's hacked. It says this domain has expired, and that's a bit worrying. I have a feeling that Toastmasters has probably stayed on top of the payments for this, so I'm not sure if it has been hacked or what, but it says DNS resolution will be restored as soon as the renewal is processed. So it's a bit worrying. Sarinka has said thanks. Okay, so have I missed anybody's questions? I've got Olga. So Olga, you said, I did an elevator pitch. If interested, please search Toastmasters Liverpool on Facebook to see my video. Well, that's brilliant. Excellent, Olga. So that's Toastmasters Liverpool on Facebook, and you can see Olga's elevator pitch for her club. Well done. Maura, thank you for your compliment, Maura. Do you advise highlighting achievements of Toastmasters in local press? Absolutely. And if somebody has been given a special recognition, we saw Adrian Melia, rest in peace, got an award from the Toastmasters president for his outstanding contribution to Toastmasters, and that was covered in the local media. If somebody's won a contest, that's a great opportunity to give them a bit of publicity, and your own club will benefit with that publicity as well. It's great to big up somebody who's done well, somebody who has won an award outside of Toastmasters maybe, and come back and given a speech about it. You can use a media release to talk about that. One of the Toastmasters in England, Gillian Haslam, she won the Mother Teresa Award for her work with the poor in India. And that was amazing. And it was a great opportunity to publicize Toastmasters as well as her own award. Raymond, you've posted a link, toastmastersclub.org portal, page 23. So I think that's an easy speak link, Raymond, that you've posted. I'm not sure. But it's not the D71. The D71 domain. So we've got a few more minutes. I'm going to take another look at the email that I sent to the VP's PR when we first talked about publicizing your club from the VP PR point of view. And I will just go through some of the things I sent to them. So that media release template was part of an email entitled "Looking for a Simple Way to Promote Your Club," which went out on the 10th or 11th of October. So I said that promoting your club is as easy as 1, 2, 3. What I will do is I'll copy and paste this as a document, and then I will upload it as one of the handouts. So it's got a step-by-step process for you to distribute it to your local media. And it, I think, will take a bit of the anxiety, if you had any, about approaching the media. It'll take it out because it'll give you a simple step-by-step method. So I'm just going to save this in my Dropbox and then copy it over into the handouts that we've got here. I'll just copy this and handouts. Okay, so now I can choose a file and I will find this here. So I'm calling this document D71 Approaching the Media. So I'm just going to drag this in here. Oh, I may not be able to add another file now that we started the webinar. No, it looks like I can't add it now. What I'll do is I'll put those steps up on the D71 website and maybe attach them to a follow-up email to you if you've registered for the webinar. You should be able to get that. So let me just close this. I don't know how to close this. Cancel. When in doubt, cancel. Okay, so I'm just going to run through what this document does say so you will know. This was about contest season publicity. So I said that getting media coverage is as easy as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I suggested that you start by saving the media release template that I had attached to the email, and then adding your winners' names to it, then adding a quote from your president. That's step 3. Step 4, adding some details about your club. And then finally, step 5, finish with your name and contact details, and presto, your media release is ready to go. The next step is to send it to your local media. So most newspapers prefer to get the media release in the body of an email rather than as a separate attachment, and that's because their computer systems are wary of attachments. So if you paste your media release into the body of your email message, they'll be able to read it, they won't lose it, and it's very simple for them. So write a short email to preface your media release, like, hello, I'm involved with the local Toastmasters club, and I thought this might be of interest to you. And then paste the content of the media release below your signature. Email it to the local newspaper or radio station news desk. And if you have photos, don't send the photos, but offer them the photos. Obviously not to the radio, but offer the photos in your email saying, I've got a picture of the contest winner with their trophy, or we've got a picture of a presentation that was made. Not so photogenic for an open night. You probably won't have anything in advance to promote it. However, you could always just have a couple of people standing in front of your club banner. You can always have a picture of that. Any picture is better than no picture sometimes. So if you have something available, let them know, but don't send it yet. They will come back to you if they want it. So once you've sent that, if they write back to ask for information or more details, make sure you respond to them. Make sure that you're not getting responses to your media releases ending up in your spam folder. And so you want to make sure you respond to the media right away, because it's fairly fast-paced. Even at a weekly newspaper, you know, they've got deadlines, so you don't want to keep them waiting for information. And then the most important thing is to read the newspaper. So you want to make sure, if they cover your event, that you know about it. So we call this media monitoring in PR, and it's an important part of what you do, because if you don't know if you've gotten any coverage, you don't know if you were successful. And the goal is to get media coverage, and knowing that you're successful is very gratifying. So, Steve Campion, Tech Whiz, has advised that indeed our D71 Toastmasters website has the domain registration has lapsed. So we'll get on to that and get that sorted. Thank you very much, Steve, for looking into that. And Moira has advised that she does a workshop on creating an elevator pitch if any clubs are interested. Well, Moira, where can people get more information about your elevator pitch workshop? Is there something you can tell us? Maybe just put another message in there. Maura has said, thank you. Billion thanks for your answer. You're very welcome. So can you see the handout that I've got there? The media release open night template is one of the handouts that's been attached here. Oh, it looks like I can choose a file. Let's just see now if I can get this. Approaching the media. Aha, there we are, upload. Okay. Bravo. Okay, so that document is now available. That's the approaching the media is as easy as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that gives you all the steps, and it'll recap some of the things that I covered with VP's PR earlier in the year. So how are we doing for time? We're in great time. Okay, now elevator pitch. If you're interested in the workshop on elevator pitch, Moira says you can contact her, and her email is toastmasters@moiraobrien.com. So that email address is toastmasters@moiraobrien.com. That's very good of you, Moira. Of course, Moira, along with Ted Maloney, hosts the Talk Show for Talkers on Irish Radio International. And you may have seen in the latest issue of the newsletter that Moira and Ted got a special award in the Toastmasters Hall of Fame for the contribution of their radio show to the district. And it's a great radio show. And if you haven't listened to it, you can listen to it on SoundCloud. Just search for the Talk Show for Talkers on Irish Radio International. So there's a lot of Toastmasters content, as the name would suggest. Have we got any other questions? Crystal, you're very welcome for the handouts. So there's 2 handouts there. And again, there are more media release templates on the D71 website. And once we pay the domain renewal fee, you'll all have access to those. I'll just give a couple more minutes here if anybody has any questions. I'm delighted so many people have come along to tonight's webinar. And if you would find it beneficial to attend another one of these, please let me know. If you have more general questions like to do with your website, the website is the VPPR's one of their tools. So if your club isn't making the most of your website, I've created a 10-point checklist, and I'm calling this the Distinguished Club Website Scheme. And any club that qualifies as having ticked off all 10 of these items on their website is eligible for a set of club ribbons. So again, the details about that are on the d71toastmasters.org website under the PR incentives. So we've got this incentive scheme to get your club some ribbons by making sure that your website ticks all the boxes that a potential visitor or guest might be looking for. Things like what to expect at your first meeting, information about your club's history, a contact form, information about when and where your club meets, what the schedule of meetings is, what Toastmasters is about. Those are all quite important things for somebody to know that will help reduce their anxiety about going to your club or even getting in touch with your club for the first time. Like everything, it's always easy once you know how to do it. But I think that our websites can be a really powerful tool if we make the most of them. I know that our club in Inverness, we had a really good website, and then it changed hosts and it dropped and it all disappeared, and we're starting again from scratch. And it's really unfortunate when something gets built up quite well, and then just through the course of things, you know, with clubs changing, the executive, the club officers change, you can drop things. So if you've got your website up to a good state, make sure people are adding new content to it so it stays fresh and it stays relevant. Right, well, it is 1951. You've all been wonderfully participative, and I appreciate you all taking time on a Sunday in December with Christmas looming and so much to do, and everything's a bit mad. I know Didsbury speakers are having their social night tonight, so none of them could come, but they got in touch to find out, was the webinar going to be recorded? So yes, indeed, it is recorded. I think I started recording from about 15 minutes before it started. So you might want to fast forward if you download the recording so that you start at the 7 o'clock marker and not 16:45. I didn't want to take any chances with it not recording, so I started it early. So I'm just going to check, are there any last questions? Steve has said, thanks, Laura, loads of useful advice. Well, thank you very much, Steve. Hopefully when you get the poll at the end of this, you and everybody else will say that this has been helpful to you. So I'm going to wrap this up now. 3 minutes ahead of schedule. Thank you again for participating. My job is to help you promote your club. Please email me if there's anything I can do to help you. If you need tools, if you need advice, if you don't know what to do, I'm here for you. So just drop me an email. And if somebody wants to see this who didn't see it, feel free to share the link to them. Crystal, thank you for getting in touch. I'm glad you found it informative. And Raymond, my pleasure. Again, anything you need, just drop me an email. I'm here to help. And on that happy note, I will say good night.